Hello and welcome to Top Market Trends in Container Data Management. Today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Portworx by Pure Storage and IDC and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm so happy that I get to be your moderator for this conversation because today I get to learn right alongside you. We have an incredible host here with us from Portworx who I will introduce in just a moment, and he is going to lead us through a roundtable discussion all about container data management. Together, we get to pull up a chair to this virtual table and sit in as these top experts explore how you can accelerate modern app development within your organization. We have a lot to cover here today, so I am going to point out just a few housekeeping things and then get this show on the road. All right, let's take a little bit of a tour of your audience console. I'm going to start us out in the questions section. Now, this is the best place to get involved, get interactive, post all of those wonderful, insightful questions, comments, feedback, ideas, everything floating around in your head. We want to hear from you. So get that in the questions window. In fact, you can give a little bit of a test run right now. Say hi, say hello, give a wave to the community here with us. A quick side note that questions window is also the best place to reach out and let us know if you have any technical issues during the session today. Now, don't forget, a browser refresh is going to clear most of the usual issues up, slides, audio, things like that. If those aren't advancing for you, try a browser refresh. If that does not work, shoot us a message in the questions window and the Actual Tech Media crew will be there to help you out. All right, the last thing I want to point out in your audience console is the handouts tab. Go check out some of the cool resources and follow-ups that we have available there that will help you get the most out of our conversation, that will help you recall the most information and share it with all your wonderful friends and colleagues, right? All right, well, if that cool content wasn't enough to get you pumped up for our day here together, we also have a $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar. Of course, you do need to be here in live attendance, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those are, you can find the full T's and C's waiting for you there in the handouts tab. All right, well, that's it for the housekeeping, which means it is time to get our awesome speakers on out here with me and get this conversation rolling. Today, I am so excited to introduce you all to our expert presenter and incredible host here with us today, Murli Thirumale, co-founder and GM Cloud Native Business Unit, Portworx by Pure Storage. And of course, his incredible guests, Joe Gardiner, Director Pre-Sales Portworx by Pure Storage, and Johnny Yu, Research Manager, Storage and Computing at IDC. Murli, thank you so much for joining us here today to host this exciting conversation. I know that you and Joe and Johnny have a lot to get through today, so I am going to step back and hand things on over to you. Take it away, Murli.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on top trends in container data management. I'm Murli Thirumale. I am the general manager of the Cloud Native Business Unit at Pure Storage, also called Portworx. I'm delighted to welcome two guests here. First, let's welcome the research manager of the IDC business, and that is Johnny Yu. Johnny, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, and we also have the Director of Cloud Native Architecture at Portworx, and that's Joe Gardiner. Joe, welcome to you.
Thanks, Murli.
All right, so let's get started. Johnny, what is driving the emergence of this new container data management category? When did IDC first hear about this trend?
Well, I think the general impetus that's really driving the emergence of this container data management category is just container adoption itself. So as containers are deploying containerized apps, they're also recognizing that they need tools to kind of manage the infrastructure and data that's supporting those container environments. And I would say this started probably around 2 or 3 years ago, where they were looking at this category more closely. And I can share a little bit of history about the sort of research we've been doing on it. And last year, IDC published a research paper called the Container Data Management Marketscape. And the primary goal of that paper was to kind of highlight the key differentiators between all of the container data management products in the market. Came up with for this category of products. So what we wanted to get at was a term that refers to software that supports the underlying infrastructure for containerized applications, for basically applications that are running in containers. But we weren't. This would be independent of the software products that are responsible for the container management itself, which would mean like creation, dissolution, and management of the container environments. So think of things like the container schedulers, the orchestrators, and the managers and whatnot. So Kubernetes itself would not be captured in this definition because that's kind of a separate category. And what we wanted to do was make a category that was solely focused on the tools and capabilities that were necessary for performing the backend storage and data management for containerized applications. So these would be things like backup, data migration, DR, storage provisioning, storage health monitoring, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you've now described sort of, Johnny, some of the components of the container data management stack. As we kind of look at customers deploying, containerized applications, what are some of the challenges that customers face today related to storage and data infrastructure for modern apps? Johnny?
Yep. I would say that one of the largest challenges that we've noticed while I was conducting the MarketScape, and just from interacting with practitioners, going to KubeCon and talking to IDC clients, is that there is a noticeable skill set gap. So what has basically happened is IT staff who are used to supporting applications that are running in traditional environments, so whether that's like on-prem physical environments or like virtual machines, or the traditional environments and not container environments, they're finding themselves having to become experts in this new type of environment, the Kubernetes environment. And so the reasoning being that the backup and security and storage and data management tools that were working previously do not work for containerized environments. So they're being forced to like upskill and get used to this new kind of environment that they're now finding themselves responsible for supporting. And I see this as mostly a reflection of the nascency of containers and Kubernetes technology. Don't get me wrong, we've done studies and found that the vast majority of organizations are using containers in some way. But when you drill down into like that data, you see that not all of them are running containerized apps in production. So they're still testing the waters a bit, or trying to deploy maybe some critical stuff just to get used to that, running stuff in that environment. And then among the people who are running containers in production, a really small portion of them are running critical apps. So there's basically a very wide range of experience and skill with running containerized apps. So that's one of the main challenges is that from a customer standpoint, how to kind of address that gap and become more confident that you're not misconfiguring your environments or something like that. And then on the upper end of things, how do you support let's say your organization is very experienced with containers. How do you start supporting the future of containerized apps?
I see. Yeah. Now, many folks start out using a CSI interface, and Joe, you've had a wide experience with customers deploying, containers at various stages of their journey. Why is CSI not sufficient for modern applications?
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that container storage interface, which is CSI, right, and our view of the world at Portworx, which is CNS, or container native storage. They're both solutions that are designed to address storage in containerized environments, but they serve different aspects of the storage challenge, right? And I think CNS, the approach that we've taken in our view of the world is really to approach solving the storage and data management problems that Johnny's just been touching on from the application and platform perspective, right? And I think if we were to compare the two, they both meet storage requirements to a certain degree, but where CNS is far more advanced and far more valuable to a customer starting to run Kubernetes at scale, is that it's actually fundamentally aware and built to serve the container ecosystem. And in the end, this leads to a far smoother management experience for the customer, and also a much more seamless integration with the operating model that Kubernetes supports, specifically the cloud operating model. And there are certain kind of characteristics within that are absolutely critical for any organization that's looking to modernize, that's looking to drive efficiency, that's looking to save money through their infrastructure. And those are things like automation, the ability to scale, the ability to be dynamic in terms of provisioning and operating storage. And so I think that's kind of, there are many kind of technical details around this topic, but I think that's the one point that really stands out for me, that close integration with the container platform provides that simplified operational model to the customer that ultimately reduces complexity, not only in managing storage, but in also deploying applications. And the net result of that is that you see broader adoption of the container platform. And to Johnny's point, also increasing criticality of the workloads that are being deployed. And the final point I'll make here is that that's really the key thing here. We have to look at why customers are investing in Kubernetes itself, because there is a huge amount of investment required, not only in the platform, if you decide to go with an enterprise solution, a vendor-based solution, or in the skills. I mean, there is an outcome that's being worked towards, a business case that underpins that, whether it's new revenue generation through building new workloads that allow you to enter new markets, or in cost savings through modernizing legacy infrastructure and applications. If you're unable to bring those critical workloads into the platform, ultimately that business case just won't be successful.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Joe. Johnny, what advice do you have for enterprises, who are solving for container data management? For example, what question should I, as a customer, be asking in trying to solve these problems?
Sure. Well, I think kind of harkening back to what I was saying about the skills gap is, I think one of the first questions to kind of is to just level set yourself. So the first consideration is to kind of know what your own level of expertise is. So if you are very far along on your Kubernetes journey and you can take advantage of highly configurable products, that's good. You're on that level. But also maybe you're also just starting out with containerized apps, and you need something that's simple, solid. Maybe just do some backend management, very simple backend management, where there's not a lot of configuration that you need to do. So it's figuring out if you need something that's something that can be adjusted to where you currently are to fit your current container estate, or do you need something that's more of a turnkey solution, like Kubernetes in a box, and you just plug it in and let it go, and now you have your Kubernetes environment. So figure out where your level of expertise, so that which tool makes more sense. And then similar to that is, you got to know where your starting point is, so that, and also kind of 2 to 3 years down the line, where you're going to be going. So, are you running containerized apps in production right now? And what do you see that looking like in 2 or 3 years? And how much have you already invested in container data and infrastructure management type tools? So, this can be as specific as what are you using right now? So just as an example, because I think a lot of people start in this place, but like, are you using open source Valero as your container data protection? Which, from my understanding, a lot of and from my research, a lot of like that is the starting point for container data protection for a lot of people, who are exploring the space. But what's going to happen when you scale beyond the point where Valero can reasonably function? Because Valero natively doesn't have like have its own interface, and if you're passing data protection, container data protection tasks over to the storage administrator side, that normally handles the rest of data protection for apps in traditional environments, they're not going to be happy that there's no interface for them to work with. So these are the kinds of things that you kind of have to think of when you're identifying your starting point, and then where it's going to be in 2 to 3 years. And then I think another thing to think about that's kind of related to that is, what container management platforms are you using, and will you be using in the future? Because like, we know Red Hat OpenShift is kind of the Kubernetes platform of choice, but we know there's many out there. There's the ones that are cloud services that are provided by the 3 major public cloud providers. So, and those are gaining traction too. And you could be running multiple distributions depending on what the apps are, or what apps you're containerizing. So the ability to be able to kind of see which of those kinds of container management platforms you're going to be using, and then being able to find a product that supports that, that's really important. And then, all related to that too, because we're thinking about the future, is you want some level of future proofing. So questions that you should be thinking about is, how are you going to eventually support critical applications? Because as Joe alluded to earlier, this is the kind of stuff that you want to be able to move into containers to reap the benefits of using containers. So you want to be able to reach a point where you can support those critical applications. And what I mean by that is, you need to be able to support zero RPO, low RTO recoverability for your clusters, your applications, and the data. So that's more or less like a baseline of what you need to be able to support critical applications. And then more future proofing is, you need to start thinking heavily about data protection and data security. Like, I'm not talking about like just like baseline data protection. I'm talking about, what are you going to do in the future when critical applications are running in Kubernetes to the point where they become lucrative to cyber criminals? So now we're talking about like, cyber data protection and being able to perform a cyber recovery, and start looping in data security, because your apps have reached a point where you need to start thinking about how to protect it from criminals.
I think, Johnny was starting to kind of describe, as people move along the scale and complexity spectrum here, some of the requirements of what customers should be looking for. From your perspective, what are some of the highlights of a good container data management solution for customers in the large enterprise?
Yeah, I think Johnny's absolutely spot on. I mean, the biggest payoff from all the benefits that Kubernetes brings, it is really only going to happen if you get those critical workloads into production. But as we know, those tier 0 applications come with a whole raft of requirements around data protection. And so it's almost like this chicken and egg situation, where you've got, as he rightly said, you've got skill gaps. It goes without saying that you have to have backup and disaster recovery for those critical workloads. But then, who's going to run those solutions if you're missing the skills? And then, of course, going back to my earlier point, now if you're not containerizing those applications, then you're either not entering new markets with new workloads or modernizing your legacy estate. So it becomes this kind of difficult thing to unpick. And I feel like, us as part of this kind of cloud native ecosystem, this community, have a sort of a responsibility to help educate users of these technologies and our customers on these topics. But I mean, from my perspective, I think one of the reasons that OpenShift, as Johnny referenced, is so prevalent is because it does obfuscate a lot of the complexity that is inherent in Kubernetes. And so, yes, of course, there are all the enterprise wrappers that are present in the platform, but I really see that complexity as a blocker. And I think the same needs to be true of a container native storage platform or data management solution, because you could argue that there's even more complexity there. And so when looking at a solution, I think there are two things that I think are particularly important. One is that you are addressing all of the pillars of data protection within a single solution. And partly it's the complexity point, but secondly, if you look at this as a point solution problem, let's go pick a backup tool, let's go pick a database deployment tool, let's go pick a software defined storage tool, and then you try and integrate them not only together as data management solutions, but also with the platform, then you're baking in even more complexity, right? And I think for me, that's an easy way to quickly fail. And I think the second point is that you have to make sure that the solutions that you're choosing are actually enterprise grade, because there is no doubt that there's a broad range of choice out there, but there are certain design patterns that I've seen and that we see customers adopting that frankly aren't suitable for the level of workload that they're trying to run. And so I see, for example, customers who have a high availability requirement, incredibly common, and they really struggle to solve that with CSI-based traditional storage solutions. So they might go down a file route, which is fine. We all understand, file-based solutions have been around for a long time, and yes, they can be difficult to manage when it comes to high availability, but sure, it is an option. But then they start compromising by saying, well, we know we need to run this workload and file isn't the best solution, but it provides us with HA, so we're going to run it, we're going to go ahead with it. And again, you're then baking risk into that platform. So they're the two areas that really stand out for me.
Well, I think, Johnny and Joe, we really appreciate you help us look around the container corner and tell us what customers should expect as they kind of move along from early stages of deployment to more sophisticated deployment and scale deployment of complex kind of environments. Today, that's all we have time for, and I wanted to thank both of you for your wisdom and for some of the information you shared with the audience. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thanks, Murli. Thanks, Joe.
Wow. Well, thank you so much to Murli, Joe, and Johnny for inviting us to join you for this discussion around that virtual table. What a fun and interesting conversation. And if you are looking for more information right away, I do want to remind you all to visit the handouts tab. Be sure you've downloaded those resources before we go. This is a great way to follow up on this conversation. Again, also to share with friends, with colleagues, to carry this conversation forward. So make sure you spend some time in the handouts tab. All right, well, we are about to bring our day to a close, which means it is time for a prize giveaway. Today's winner of a $250 Amazon gift card is Mike Yerke from Texas. Mike Yerke from Texas. Congratulations to you, Mike. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to once again thank Portworx by Pure Storage and IDC for making this webinar possible, especially to our incredible host, Murli, and your expert guests, Joe and Johnny. You have all given us so much to think about today. Which of course means that it is time for me to thank all of you, because none of this is possible without all of you wonderful folks here in the audience with us today. So my biggest high five, my biggest thank you goes to all of you for making today possible. We so appreciate the time that each of you has taken out of your day to come and join us in this conversation. I think we got through some really exciting ways that you can increase your organization's potential through that accelerated modern application development, through container data management. This is a really cool concept and idea, and I'm so glad that we all got to dig in and explore a little bit together today. So I know I have learned a ton from this session. I hope you all have as well. I can't wait to see you all at a webinar again soon. And until then, have an absolutely beautiful end to your day.